Hello again, welcome back to the potting shed. Today I need to give some love to my dear old Jasmine. It's looking particularly straggly at the moment. Its period of flowering is over, so it does tend to look a little bit exhausted and a little bit straggly after it's done its thing. If you've watched any of my other videos about this particular Jasmine, then you'll know how sensational it looks during its short few week flowering period. I'll show you a picture if you've not seen one. And afterwards it tends to have depleted its energy and look a bit straggly. A lot of additional growth happens and it just looks a bit worse for wear. But more so this year, I think, because for two reasons actually. Firstly, I put it outside again a little bit too early. We did actually get quite a few cold nights after it's flowered. I usually put it outside again, and it spends most of its year in my garden until about late autumn time, in about November, when I bring it back into the house, where it stays for a few months and then goes through its flowering period in January, late January, February. But yes, I was a little bit, maybe a bit too quick to put it outside, and what I should have done is be a little bit more considerate, put it outside during the day on a nice day, bring it back inside and keep doing that during the day for 2 or 3 days, maybe even a week, to let it acclimatize and readjust to the slightly cooler temperatures outside. But I didn't. We'd had at least a good week of very nice 20-degree plus days, and so I just put it outside. And yeah, so some of the new growth, the older, more mature growth is fine, but the new growth, some of it has got a little bit blackened by some colder temperatures. So that's my bad. And the other reason is it's been in this pot, wow, I don't know, 5 years, maybe even longer. It's quite a long time, and I want to keep it in here. Firstly, for a plastic pot, I think it's actually quite a nice shape, and secondly, I like to bring it in and put it in my living space because the smell of the jasmine when it's flowering is just amazing. I love it in the house. It literally fills the entire house with the beautiful jasmine scent, and there's nothing like it. And so I don't want to put it in a bigger pot. I don't want to turn it into a hedge. I like it in this compact shape and size. Well, it's not particularly compact at the moment, but it will be. And so what I'm going to do is take it out of this pot, scrape out what's left of the old soil, which won't be much now because it's been in here for so long, but maybe trim some of the roots back, give it a bit more space, give it some fresh soil again, and put it back in the pot. And then we'll cut off some of this frost damage growth, but more importantly, it has already started growing some fresh growth, so I'm not worried about it too much. I've given it, it got frost damage about 2 weeks ago, I think now, and I've kept it in here in the potting shed where it's got light from both sides. There's windows behind you guys and there's windows here, and so actually during the day it gets nice and warm in here and doesn't drop down as cold as outside. So it's been acclimatizing again in here, and it's had a couple of weeks to regain its strength, and we've actually got some fresh growth again now, so it's okay. I'm happy enough to do some work on it. We'll cut back some of this old dead growth and then bring it back to a more compact shape. And I need to do something about, really, there isn't much of a trellis left in here. There was 3 bamboo canes in a bit of a teepee format, but they've all fallen out now, and so I'm going to have a think about how I'm going to create some structure for it to grow up. It is a climbing or scrambling plant, I suppose, and so I'm going to need to create something for it, but I'll have a think about that as I go along, and maybe put some new supports in there for it. And yeah, we'll basically give it some love, give it a tidy up, and then it will be good for another good few years in this pot, and hopefully serve as a loyal companion for many more years to come. So if you've got a jasmine and you want to follow along, please do. Any questions, you know the drill, put them down in the comments. Always happy to help if I can. And if you've got any tips that you use with your jasmine, always happy to hear them. So without further ado, let's get started, shall we? So let's get these bamboo canes out, because they're not really doing anything anymore. Well, they were doing something actually, because it's falling over a bit more. So they were offering a little bit of support, I suppose. I think I might cut some of these off first, just to make it a bit easier to work with. You see this one here, it's quite long, and a lot of this was caught by the frost, although as I say, I have got some new growth here. But I'm going to bring it right back for now, because we don't need that much growth. If there is some new growth on here, I might cut these off for some cuttings later. But by cutting these off, it will be stimulating the plant to put more new shoots out, but closer in. So this will help to give it a little bit more of a bushier habit, which is what I'm looking for. It's like there's an old dead vine here that can go. One here. We'll do a better job of this later, but just sorting out a little bit of the scraggliness. There's another dead one here. In fact, where's that? That's dead all the way along, so that can come back here. They're actually very robust plants, and they can take quite a bit of neglect, luckily, because I do ignore it half the year. It's partly why I like it so much. It's almost a part-time houseplant, because I can put it outside. It gets rained on when it does. It gets watered occasionally when I think about it. A lot of the time it just sits outside, gets whatever it gets with the elements, and then when it gets towards winter, I start paying it attention and bring it back inside again. But seems to be quite tolerant for I don't know how many years, a long time. I don't know if you can see that far back, but there's a new stem growing right here at the intersection. This is what we like to see. Plenty of fresh new growth. Can I lean you in? You see that? Fresh new growth. It's a beautiful thing. I really enjoy this sort of a job. It's really quite relaxing. There's enough going on that you need to pay attention, but it's not so demanding that you can't just lose yourself in it, which makes it very zen, very relaxing. Always feel calmer after doing this, and it's just it's a nice thing to do if you've been feeling a bit stressed, or you do suffer from anxiety or depression even, to be able to just handle a living thing and spend some time in a simple task. Then yeah, I can get a lot of satisfaction from that. I guess it's similar to the Buddhist monks that practice raking the stones in the Zen garden. It's a very specific thing, and they have to do it in a very ordered and certain way, but at the same time it's almost the meditation in the process while you're doing it, which is the useful and beneficial thing. So I like it. just working my way through here, untangling the branches, seeing what we've got, what we don't need, and bringing it back to something easier to work with, because they do tend to grow, intertwine each other. But you know, as you cut them back, they will regrow from the base here, from the different nodes and intersections. So it's no problem creating something more practical, because they will often respond by pushing out a huge amount of new vibrant growth. So it's useful for the plant as well to get a bit of a tidy up. I suppose if I wanted to, I could bring this right the way down to a few stems and a few nodes and really bring it into a compact shape, because I can already see right down at the bottom there's some new growth right from the very stem here. So you can almost go back right to the beginning and it will shoot again. You can be quite brutal with it, but sometimes I think it helps, especially as this one's had a bit of a knock recently in terms of getting a bit cold, and we're going to mess with its roots a little bit. You shouldn't go too heavy cutting one side or another. If you're going to trim back the roots, you shouldn't take too much off the top, because it needs to produce the energy from somewhere. And so if you go too heavy on the top and too heavy on the roots, then you can endanger the plant. So because we are going to mess around with the roots, I'm going to keep a lot of the top growth. But if I wanted to take it back even more, I could wait a month or so for the plant to recover from the root trimming, and then once it's vigorously growing again, I could then cut it back further if I wanted to. Just something to bear in mind. There's actually one, most of these stems are growing up and sort of folding over. That's okay, they can be straightened up, but there's one like a horizontal branch that's coming all the way out to here, and then you've got shoots coming up. So it's not ideal with the overall look of it, and it's a little bit impractical. So once the plant has got stronger and we finish the overall root pruning and repot, I'll probably take that out here from the center, take that whole horizontal branch out, but I am going to keep it for the moment for the reasons I just mentioned. Mostly what I'm taking off here is the dead leaves and the sort of damaged branches. So we're not taking off that many viable leaves or stems at the moment. Right, I think that's tidied it up a lot, and a lot of the stems here have been untangled from each other, so we should be able to get this into some sort of understandable format. So the next thing I want to do is get this pot off and take a look at the roots, because they're going to be pretty compact, I imagine. Let's find out. Yeah, this has been in here for over 5 years. It's not going to come out without a bit of work. As always, trusty harvest knife comes to the rescue. This I use for everything. It is literally the best possible tool that you can use for general houseplant maintenance. It just does so many things. I love it. There's a link down in the description where you can get one if you want. They're very cheap. So I'm just going to slide it down in between the pot and the soil and just use it to separate the roots from the pot. Aha! Success! It's actually not as stuck in there as I expected. I thought there would be way more roots in there. it's going to get messy. So yeah, let's bring you in a bit, or bring it over to you. So you can see the bottom is very fibrous, very solid, and there's roots growing up here, but this bit here is still fairly open. I'm quite surprised. Now, where's my specialist tool? I've got a very sophisticated tool that I use for my bonsai. And it's perfect for root pruning and, sorry for the noise. It's perfect for this job. It's my trusty fork. Just going to use it to scrape over the soil, and this will take the soil off and expose the roots and make quite a mess. Okay, maybe there's not as much soil there as I thought. There's only a thin layer, and then we're into quite a dense mat of roots. That's more what I expected. Some stones under here that the roots have grown into and over. The stones are at the bottom of the pot to use as a bit of ballast so it doesn't keep blowing over in the wind. Literally stuck in the pot now under the roots. I mean, there are loads and loads of roots here, but that's good to see because they're all really fine roots, which means, you know, it's got plenty of surface area to take up nutrients and things, so that's a good sign. You know, the roots are in very good health. All I'm going to do now is cut away some of the bigger, thicker roots and just reduce some of the volume here, so we've got more room for fresh soil, which is going to allow the plant to grow away strongly and develop new roots again. And if it can continue making these fine roots and growing into the new soil, it's going to be healthy and happy for another few more years. Okay, there we are. We've brought the root ball down. Probably there was a good, I don't know, 2 inches here and a good inch all the way around. So now when we take the pot, I don't know if I can get you in here, but there is a lot of space in there, and at the bottom there's probably 3 inches of space at the bottom there. So we can return this, put some fresh soil in, and it will be much happier. We've exposed a lot of fine root growth here, so it can grow away into the fresh soil, get some more energy, and be happy for a long time to come, hopefully. So I'm going to get it back in the pot, get some fresh soil in, and we'll be good to go. It's always worth just gauging the level of the pot before you commit to it. I want a few inches above here so the surface has got some fresh soil in as well. I'm going to work that down all the way down the sides, give it a bash so it goes down into the sides of the pots, down the side of the pot as well. We need the soil in contact with all of the roots. You can use something like a garden cane just to work around the edge of the pot, just so that soil can find its way down around the sides. That's pretty good. And obviously a good water, give it plenty of water, so the water will help the soil, lots of little particles of soil find its way all in between the roots, and that will help it settle in the pot better as well. Alrighty, I think I'm going to leave it there for this one. I'm not going to put in a support because some of these horizontal branches, like I said, I'm going to remove anyway. So we're going to have a slightly more tighter plant once I'm all done with that, and then I'll be able to work in a smaller frame, and gives me a minute to think about exactly how I want to present that in the best way. And a lot of that will be from new growth winding into the frame. So for now, it's happy, it's standing up on its own, and I'm going to give it time to recover and recuperate here in the potting shed. I'm going to give it a good water and a few weeks to really take on some energy and recover, put on some new root growth, and then maybe I'll do another video about the frame once I've figured out what I want to do for the best, and whether I want to just put another TP or a completely different type of frame for the future. So I'm going to leave it here. I hope you found this useful in terms of repotting generally, or specifically what you can do with your own jasmine plants. Please give it a thumbs up if you have, and subscribe for more houseplant related videos coming along very soon.